All right, everybody, welcome to another IAEI News Live. My name is Thomas Dimitrovich, and I want to talk today. I've been inspired this week at an event, and I want to share with you the energy that I'm experiencing this week. And I want to talk a little bit about the qualified person. I want to talk about education and some industry news, and it all starts now. All right, welcome. Yes, I am. This is a recorded session. I am traveling this week. I am teaching a class all week at National Training Institute, and it's with the Electrical Training Alliance, and we're talking NFPA 70E. So the first thing I want to do is I just got to get this off my shoulders. There is a difference between teaching individuals who just want CEU credits from teaching individuals who want to learn. It's a huge difference. In my opinion, I'd rather have a smaller group of individuals who want to learn something than a very large room of individuals who simply want CEU credits, because the engagement is so much more. I grow as an educator. I grow in my knowledge based upon the audience and their questions, and they hold you accountable. And that's what I'm experiencing this week. And we had our first day of classes today, and I'm telling you, absolutely phenomenal. And NFPA 70E is just a great topic to begin with, but our focus today was on the culture, changing the culture of our electrical industry. And in light of that culture discussion, from an industry news perspective, I want to share with you an event that occurred, a not good event, not something that I enjoy sharing, but in my opinion, I think we need to all understand these events, that they occur, because it is a part of ownership of electrical safety. So this event happened to occur in Charlotte, North Carolina, at the Charlotte airport. There was a construction worker fatally electrocuted. The report is that a worker died during a construction accident at the Charlotte Douglas International Airport on Monday. And this report, the date on this report is July 26th. So it would have been on Monday of that week. And it is August 1st of this recording. So a worker died during a construction accident at Charlotte Douglas International Airport early Monday, authorities said. And an electrical contractor, a company based in California, filed a report at 10 a.m. Monday confirming the death with the North Carolina Department of Labor. I'm very cautious at reading names, but John Mallow, a spokesman for the Department of Labor, I think I can share that, said the death was caused by electrocution. The employee was found unresponsive at the construction site. The electrical contractor's spokeswoman told the Charlotte Observer Tuesday afternoon. The spokeswoman also said that OSHA and the company are investigating the death in addition to the state. So police were called to the airport at 1:15 a.m. Monday. Firefighters and paramedics treated the worker at the scene before he was taken to the Carolinas Medical Center. Doctor pronounced the patient dead at the hospital. The worker's identity has not been released, and the Labor Department is investigating the incident. It was not immediately known what construction project the worker was at when the electrocution occurred or what time that the electrocution occurred. So apparently there is a lot of airports, if you travel a lot, you're going to see construction at a lot of airports. I know the Pittsburgh airport, many airports are going through construction projects. And I honestly, for this electrical worker and all of those that we lose in our electrical industry, I would like to just have a few moments of silence in their honor. Thank you. So, this contractor is heavily involved with the airport, and so here's the thing. So, I'm doing a class. Excuse me, I'm having another allergy attack, which is ungood when you're trying to teach classes, but this is just occurring. So, from an NFPA 70E perspective, 70E, I want to talk a little bit about some key things. In Annex K of 70E, so here's a beef I have with classes around 70E and safe work practices. Unfortunately, a lot of people, when they do a 70E class, focus on arc flash and incident energy, and they focus on incident energy reduction, and they show the videos of the explosion. They taught explosions, and they show personal protective equipment. The thing that I think is important for us all to remember is that shock, electrocutions, take more lives than incident energy and arc flash. If you go to Informative Annex K, and if I could get, oh, I know what the problem is. I went to NFPA 70. I need to go NFPA 70E and go to the Informative Annexes and click on Informative Annex K, which is titled General Categories of Electrical Hazards. One of the first steps for us as an industry is to make sure not only our electrical workers, but others understand how to recognize hazards. That is such an important thing for us, because if you can't recognize what a hazard is, you can't avoid the hazard. You can't take the steps to mitigate the hazard. You can't go through the hierarchy of control if you don't understand how to recognize hazards. Now, electric shock. Over 40% of all electrical fatalities in the United States involved overhead power line contact. That's an important aspect to remember. It's an important number. Over 40% overhead contact. About 98, think about this number. Just think about this. About 98% of fatal occupational electrical injuries are electrical shock injuries. Let that sink in. Think about this poor family in Charlotte that has to go through the process of realization that a husband, a father, possibly a brother, a uncle, maybe even a grandfather, I don't know, is not coming home because of an electrical shock. About 98% of fatal occupational electrical injuries are electrical shock injuries. If you go to an NFPA 70E class and the instructor's focusing on arc flash, in my opinion, they're missing the boat, because we need to address shock injuries. That is what's taken the lives now. So bear with me here. that 40% of the electrical incidents involve 250 volts or less. Okay, so we get all of that. Let's keep going. So, another important, Annex K is a very important annex, in my opinion. It's an easy read. Print out Annex K. If you have it in your book, take it with you everywhere you can, because there is a lot of very important information in Informative Annex K. Listen to this. So, a corporate study examining electrical injury reporting and safety practices found that 40% of electrical incidents involved 250 volts or less and were indicative of misperception of electrical safety as a high voltage issue. In addition, electrical incidents once again were found to involve a large share of non-electrical workers. A large, significant share of non-electrical workers. Electrical safety is not just about the electricians. It's not just about electrical engineers. It's not just about electrical technicians. It's about the plumber. It's about the carpenter. It's about the HVAC installer. It's about the owner. It's about the occupants. It's much more than just the electrical worker. And I don't like to say just the electrical worker. It's much more about the electrical worker. It says with approximately 1/2 of incidents involving workers from outside the electrical crafts. Why is that? Think about that. We are pulling wires. We are creating electrical installations that everybody uses. And technically, the order of construction, think about the order of construction. And I know the order of construction closely for one big reason. My house, I built a house one time. And during the construction process, my electrician shows up and he calls me and he says, "Hey, Tom," he says, "I got a problem. I want you to come to the house." So I met him at my house that was under construction. And he says, "Here's my issue, Tom." He says, "The plumber and your HVAC guy have not been in here yet. And I've been called out to wire the home. It's not the right order." He goes, "Now the issue is scheduling, because the plumber can't be here, and then once the plumber gets here, and if the HVAC guy gets here, then I'm tied up on another home." So it was it was a scheduling issue. Excuse me. I'm getting allergies. Geez. It was a scheduling issue. There were a lot of things going on that were going to be problematic. We called the builder, and he installed his wires. Now you have a plumber who's going to come in and put his plumbing in, and he has to sweat fittings, because I did copper pipe, and so he has to sweat fittings. And how do you sweat fittings? You're using flames, and you're in and around wiring. And then the HVAC guy comes in and he says, "Well, I want my ductwork to go here," so he has to move wires, and he has to pull on the wires to put his ductwork in the rafters. That is problematic. And, oh, by the way, everything is pretty much energized. So they're working in and around an installation that could have been hazardous if something had gone wrong. The order of the project makes a difference. I don't care if it's a residential home. I don't care if it's a commercial building, a hospital, a high-rise building, an industrial facility. The order of construction and the trades makes a difference. Now, regardless of the order, once your wiring is installed and your HVAC and your plumbing, Who comes next? You've got drywallers, you've got cabinetry, you've got all of your carpenters with regard to what do they call that? Moldings, baseboards, and hopefully you pick the right locations for all of your wires, so that if it's a kitchen and you know cabinets are going to go on the wall, you don't put the wiring behind where the cabinets are going to go. You pull your wires in areas where they are not going to be jeopardized. But in many cases, you can't tell where they will be jeopardized because you can't anticipate what the homeowner or the architect or whomever it is, what they're going to want to do with the space once everything is up. But I think it's Annex K of NFPA 70E is a very important annex, a very important material for you to read. And I would ask that you do that. All right, so Annex K. So my key takeaway from Annex K is, if you're focusing on arc flash in your 70E educational programs, you're missing the boat. Let's talk about shock. Yes, I can't show explosions for shock. And it's hard to keep the interest of my attendees when I'm talking shock. But 98% of fatal occupational electrical injuries are electrical shock injuries. That makes a difference. That should make a difference in your educational materials. That should make a difference in what you want to learn more about. And it's about understanding the hazards. It's about design practices and principles during construction, before construction, and after construction. Shock is a very important category of that electrical hazard that should be at the top of your list. Now, I want to talk about the qualified person. So if you look at the NFPA 70E defines a qualified person, all right? It's one who's basically demonstrated skills, okay? And what do we mean by skills? A skill set is not necessarily book education. It's not necessarily listening to somebody regurgitate slides all day. Skills are developed through practical applications, through hands-on interaction. So it's the word skills. In fact, let's take a look. Skills. Let's look at Webster definition of skills. I mean, that's what we're all about, right? All right, so Merriam-Webster, that's ability, skill set. That's skill set. Let's take out set, and let's just look at skill. The ability to use one's knowledge effectively and readily in execution or performance. Dexterity or coordination, especially in the execution of learned physical tasks. So it's about execution. That's the noun. So when you think about the qualified person, when it says one who has demonstrated skills, you are demonstrating that you understand what you have learned. Sometimes, quite often, that is a hands-on experience. Okay, so skills and knowledge related to the construction and operation of electrical equipment and installations, and has received safety training to identify the hazards and reduce the associated risk. Now, so skills and knowledge related to the construction and operation of electrical equipment. Let's just focus there. Think about the time in your history when you first learned about what a receptacle is. Something as simple as a receptacle. And I say as simple as a receptacle. Receptacles can be a very complicated product and solution. But on the scale of things. When you first learned about the terminals on a receptacle, whether what was the silver terminal, what was the gold terminal, or the copper looking terminal, or the bronze looking terminal, what's about that green terminal, what that is, that there's a duplex and a single receptacle, a quadplex, that the neutral conductor, the white wire, goes on that silvery looking terminal, and the black wire, the hot wire, goes on the gold looking terminal, and that bare copper conductor goes on the green terminal, and how it's supposed to be wired in, and the fact that a 15 amp versus a 20 amp receptacle, what kind of circuit you can put that on, the ampacity of the circuit, all of that. That is creating a qualified person. Whether you understand that or not, you are creating a qualified person. Every piece of knowledge associated with understanding products and their installation. If you do an apprenticeship class and you're teaching students how to do a three-way switch, or you're teaching students how to mount an enclosure on the wall, how to wire circuit breakers and fusible switches, you're actually conducting 70E training, because you're creating a qualified person who understands the details of that product. They understand how to recognize the hazards. They know what is energized and what is not, depending upon the position of a switch. They understand what that a receptacle outlet might have a 120 volt rating, could have a 240 volt rating, what voltage might be present. And then when you marry that knowledge of the product with 70E, where 70E tells us that I believe it's in 110 as well. I can go to 110, but I could also go to 130. Let's go to 110. Article 110, which is your general requirements for electrical safety related work practices, tells us that, looking for the right section, drum roll please, this is what, and I treat this like a live session, so I do not, I don't hit pause, which you can tell because I'm having an allergy attack as we speak, that there are test instruments, portable code, ground fault circuit interrupter, overcurrent protection modifying, electrical safety program, inspection, condition of maintenance, awareness, and self-discipline. They have safety procedures, risk assessment. You have the hierarchy of risk controls. And I'm looking at the previous version. They talk about the qualified person. So qualified person shall be trained and knowledgeable in the construction and operation of equipment or a specific work method, and be trained to identify and avoid. This is 110.2 training requirements. A, electrical safety training. 1, qualified person. So they give you the details around a qualified person. They talk about the fact that you have to be trained and knowledgeable in the construction and operation of equipment. If you've never installed a receptacle before, if you don't even know what the lugs and the terminations are on a receptacle, you're not qualified to work on and install receptacles. If you look at a switchboard and you don't understand what's behind those doors before you open them, you're probably not qualified to work on that equipment. Now, you could be qualified for a specific task, right? So I could be doing justified energized work, and I can teach you how to hold a flashlight so that you can shine light on my work. And that's what you're qualified to do. Hold a flashlight, but you're not qualified to pick up a screwdriver or pick up a wrench and touch anything. You're not qualified to open and close doors or overcurrent devices. You might be qualified to hold that flashlight, and that is it. You could be a professional engineer and be only for specific work, only be qualified to handle that light, that flashlight, because that's what you are trained to do. That's what you're knowledgeable on. Just because you have a PE license, just because you have a journeyman license, just because you have certain qualifications does not mean you're qualified to do everything with everything. I can drive a car, but I'm not qualified to drive a Mack truck or an international truck or whatever Peter built, an 18-wheeler. All right. I might not even be qualified to have a large dump truck with a large trailer on the back. There are educational courses and qualifications and licensing that are required for that type of operation. So 110.2, A1 goes through the items, skills, and techniques necessary to distinguish exposed energized electrical conductors and circuit parts from other parts of electrical equipment. Skills and techniques necessary to determine the nominal voltage of exposed energized electrical parts. You have to have the decision-making process, and it goes on. Then they talk about the unqualified person and the fact that you have to train both the qualified and the unqualified person. Maybe an unqualified person has to be trained so that they understand when they're unqualified. They talk about the type of training. And then in 120, in Article 120, establishing an electrically safe work condition, man, there's 8 steps to establishing an electrically safe work condition. You should be able to spout all 8 of those off. And that was a point of discussion today. My co-presenter, my co-educator, my co-professor, whenever I teach a class, it's sometimes if you teach a class with the same person all the time or by yourself all the time, it's difficult. Because you begin to either learn your own program or you learn you and your co-presenter or co-teacher, educator, whatever you want to call it, professor, I don't know what you'd call it, whatever the classification is. You learn each other and you learn each other's materials and thought process. But when you start changing with other individuals, and even in the class, have different individuals sitting in the class, everybody has something different to bring to the table. And so one of the things what I love about this week is in the audience, in the classroom, the individuals don't just sit there and wonder, when is this going to be over so I can get my CEU credits? They are there engaged, challenging everything you say, every word you say. They'll say, hold on, stop. You just said this. Did you mean that? Did you really mean that? This is how I interpreted what you said. And they will challenge your content. And sometimes you got to backtrack. You got to go, hold on. I know I said this, but I meant that. We all misspeak many times. We're not all perfect. And when you're in a class and the class is engaged enough to even add to what you're presenting and add to the discussion, this is a train the trainer event. And these individuals who we are educating are learning so that they can go back and teach classes. And I'm telling you, it is very satisfying to have that level of engagement. Lockout, tagout procedures. And so 120 is speaking to establishing the electrical safe work condition. And all of this, the whole NFPA 70E is just a critical aspect of it, of electrical safety for obvious reasons. But it's really important to understand how everything relates to each other and understand how how important it is, especially if you are attending a class, to engross yourself in what is being talked about. It's not just about reading slides. It's about understanding the content and engaging yourself in the educational material from a student's perspective, and then from an educator's perspective, when you're teaching this information, you need to draw that out, those examples out in your audience. Now, the IAEI. Let's talk a little bit about the excuse me. Oh my goodness. It's going to be a long week. It's only Monday. So the IAEI offers a lot of opportunities for education. Now, there are on-demand training environments. And here's my thoughts on that. If you are in an IAEI educational program, and it is an on-demand online training, and you have questions, write those questions down based upon the information that you're hearing. If there's nobody moderating it, if there's not a person that's live, if it's a recorded event, listen to what they're saying. Write down your questions, and then follow up with the IAEI. Get out there, give a call in, say you want to talk to Jody Wages. And Jody Wages will connect you with the right individuals. Maybe it was Chuck Mello doing a presentation. Maybe I was doing a presentation. Maybe it was one of the other educators that IAEI uses to teach materials. And maybe Jody doesn't have that answer for you, and it will connect you with those educators so that you can ask your questions and get that feedback. That's the value of being an IAEI member as well. Because a lot of the individuals who teach this teach out at the IAEI Western section, the Eastern section, the Southwestern and Northwestern sections. And when you're at the section meetings, this is your opportunity to connect with those educators. Get their information, and when you have questions, connect with them offline. Now, So on the IAEI's website, you have on-demand training, you have NEC code changes, 2020 NEC analysis of changes. There's a 2020 NEC 4-part seminar, 1.5 hours each. I mean, that's just phenomenal. You think about how much material is available at your fingertips at any time, regardless globally where you're at. And quite frankly, if you are in a country that doesn't enforce the National Electrical Code, that's fine. Learning about the requirements helps you teach about the fundamentals of safety. Now here's, I'm going to go there right now. Analysis of changes. What else do we have? Grounding and bonding, electrical systems, one of the most fundamental things we can do in our electrical infrastructure. And we're talking source grounding, and we have a source grounding book. So you can purchase the book, you can read along in the book with the online programming. And I'll tell you what, in my opinion, in how I learn, I like to pace myself. There are times when I'm in a live session where I might be in person and the presenter might be going a little fast. I like to rewind. I can't do that in certain environments and certain platforms. But when you're doing an online educational program, you can rewind when you need to and leverage these resources. So you have grounding and bonding. You have an 8-hour course. You have separately derived systems, which is a specific topic. Connecting to Earth, the grounding electrode system, a separate topic. Basic definitions from source grounding. And fundamentals. You have residential dwelling. So if you're a residential wireman or wire person, then you want to learn about residential dwelling units. These are all of the requirements for 1 and 2 family dwelling units systems, parts 1 and 2. There's a full 3-hour course or 2 1.5 hour each. Right? You can do these on demand and not leave the comfort of your home or your business. Kitchen countertops and other receptacle spacing requirements, personnel protection for dwelling units, your GFCI protection, receptacle wall spacing, swimming pools. If you do swimming pools, you want to get a fresher on what are the code requirements on swimming pools. There it is. Oh, I'm sorry. There it is. It's important to make sure that you stay up to date and you stay engaged. And it's great to be in person, but you can get a lot of value out of these online seminars as well. Electrical service requirements. Look at this. There's materials out here for electrical service requirements. Electrical service requirements 4-hour program or parts 1, 2, and 3. Healthcare facilities. If you do hospitals and you do healthcare type of installations. This is Mark Hilbert. Okay, look at the instructors. This is Mark Hilbert, one of the best in the industry. You have an opportunity to listen to him, words right from his mouth. And he's heavily involved and heavily engaged in not only the codes and standards, but in practical application. There's an individual that if you had the opportunity to listen to, take it. Tremendous opportunity to learn from some of the best in the industry. That's what the IAEI gives you. And you know what? If you're doing it just for CEU credits, in my opinion, it doesn't matter. But if you want to actually learn something, this is the group. You want to hit their educational materials. You'll look at Mark Early, does healthcare facilities receptacle requirements. Jim Rogers, the chair of Code Making Panel 4, photovoltaic systems. Who else would you want to learn something from? This individual is not only on a code making panel, he's out inspecting and working with real world applications. Take advantage of it. And this is one of the things I love about what I'm doing this week, because the people in the audience are not there for CEU credits. They could care less about a CEU credit. They don't. In fact, I think they're doing CEU credits this year, but they have not done them in the past. This is like sort of a bonus. But these individuals come out here in some cases their own expense. In some cases, they're not getting paid from their job, and they want to learn and they want to be the best in the industry, and they want to relay information because you know what it does? It saves lives, and that's what this is all about. That's what the IAEI is all about. Jim Rogers is all over that. Pete Jackson. Oh my goodness, Pete Jackson out in California. Pete Jackson's in the heart of photovoltaics, electric vehicles, wind. He's in the heart of it. Very instrumental in a lot of the code requirements. And you hear directly from him on what's going on in the PV industry. And he goes over the basics, electrical calculations. And then Jim Rogers, the basics. And Pete Jackson again, meet the components. I'm telling you, these are very valuable sessions with people that you probably, depending upon the part of the country, you probably will never meet them in person. But you can meet with them virtually. And then once you become an IAEI member, you connect with them online through the membership portals. And connect with these individuals, ask questions, engage with them. It's about networking. It's about building your Rolodex. And I'm aging. I'm giving my age indication. And they're dedicated people. Look, I'm sitting here in a hotel room at 11 o'clock at night recording this. Why? Why would I do that? I don't have to do that for my job. I'm not getting paid for it for spending all of this time developing educational materials. It's because, like Pete Jackson, like Jim Rogers, like David Williams, and Chuck Mello, and Mark Hilbert, and others who teach classes for IAEI, we care about the electrical industry, and we want to make it better, and we want to grow together and save lives. That's what we do. 70E Basics, Hazardous Locations, David Humphrey. Paul Dabrowski. These individuals are in the heart of Paul Dabrowski. He's an IEEE member, Institute of Electrical Electronics Engineers, heavily engaged in the industry and working on hazardous locations. Keith Laughlin and swimming pools. I'm just looking at James Hawthorne and Jody Wages on Ask the Inspector, comment NEC violations. James Hawthorne down in Texas. You know, he's out every day inspecting. He sees stuff and he is sharing his knowledge so that others don't make the same mistakes that others do. So that's what we have to do as professionals. We have to share our knowledge. Jody Wages, Mark Hilbert, again, electrical workspace requirements. You know, so here's another thing I want to say. Think about risk. What is risk? Risk is comprised of likelihood and severity. The likelihood of an event that could hurt you occurring and the severity of that event. That is what comprises risk. If I look at the requirements in the National Electrical Code, working space, does that impact likelihood or severity? Working space impacts likelihood. I give you enough space so that you are less likely to trip over something. I'm going to give you working space. I'm going to give you the room to do your job. Barriers. Article 230 has line-side barriers for service entrance equipment. Likelihood or severity from a risk perspective. Barriers reduces the likelihood that you'll accidentally come in contact with something energized. So it addresses likelihood. But if you do come into contact, it's not going to address severity. But some barriers, arc flash barriers, could address severity, right? Because arc flash resistant equipment and things like that, arc resistant equipment, contain the arc flash. So maybe that impacts the severity on the other side of that enclosure that you might be standing on, making sure that you don't feel the brunt of the energy. That's, if you can look at all of the NFPA requirements, all of the different section requirements in the NEC, and put them either in one or other category, or you might even find some requirements that impact both likelihood and severity. We had a great discussion over the weekend in our at this event, where we had discussions with apprentices talking about. My point of discussion was risk, and I went through this discussion, likelihood and severity, and I gave the example. Say an automobile. There are statistics that when you get in your car and drive to work, there are statistics on how many people die or get in accidents on a highway, right? Or on a regular road. That is likelihood, the likelihood of an event occurring. I can impact likelihood if I elect to take my cell phone and start watching my cell phone while I'm driving. I can increase the likelihood that I'm going to have an accident because what? I'm not paying attention. When I put my seatbelt on, I'm not impacting likelihood, I'm impacting severity. Should a crash occur? An airbag impacts severity of an event. So I can control, I don't like to use the word control. I'm going to say I can manage risk. I can manage risk based on my actions, what I do, how I do it. I can manage risk through the National Electrical Code in installation requirements by mandating barriers in place, mandating arc reduction technologies, which reduces incident energy. I may not reduce the likelihood of an arc flash event, but I can reduce the severity of the event. Ground fault circuit interrupters, ground fault protection of equipment, working space. Height of overhead lines. We have requirements for height of overhead lines, right? Over tracks, over roads. I'm not doing severity, I'm not addressing severity, but the likelihood that you're going to come in contact. Service conductors, the distance off of the roof, likelihood of touching it. So you can look through the National Electrical Code, and I would encourage you to do that. Look through the NEC and think about the requirements with regard to likelihood and severity. How does a requirement address risk? That's an important topic. 70B, bravo, for maintenance. If I don't maintain my circuit breaker and that circuit breaker takes longer to open on arcing faults, incident energy goes up. Lack of maintenance could impact severity of an event because it didn't open fast enough. Lack of maintenance on an assembly. When I take the dead front off, if all of a sudden I hear something fall behind it because of rust, because components haven't been maintained and they're falling off inside the equipment, because I didn't put covers on the holes and something got in there, likelihood of an arc flash event could be evident. Likelihood of shock because something occurs and energizes the frame and I touch it. I could increase the likelihood if I don't perform maintenance. So 70B for maintenance of electrical distribution equipment can impact risk from a likelihood and a severity perspective. Tell me this is cool. I think it's absolutely awesome. Take all of the different codes, 70, 70B, 110, NFPA 110, NFPA 111, NFPA 99, NFPA 73, NFPA 72, and look at the requirements through the eyes of risk, likelihood, and severity. In my opinion, you could probably categorize things, and it might shed a different light for you on those documents in their entirety and the requirements that are within, because it'll help you understand the impact. Now, the other discussion that we had, some of those who are very successful at their safe work practices in their companies. I've spoken to, there was one individual, man, I tell you, one individual that, in my opinion, true rock star. He was able to get his senior leadership to fund activities of educating around electrical safety, around programs, software applications to help them in their maintenance activities, in their following their workers around and sharing toolbox talks, okay? Very successful in that. And I asked that individual, I said, we were over dinner one time, and I said, Harvey, how are you so successful in what you're doing within your organization? Very large contracting firm. And he said to me, he says, Tom, I had learned through trial and error that you have to talk two different ways to two different groups of individuals. He says, when I talk to my guys in the field and my gals in the field, I tell them and I remind them that they want to go home at the end of the day the same way they arrived to work in the morning. I remind them of how important it is, their livelihood is to their family. I remind them of the value and the impact they have on each other as an organization, how their actions could put other lives at risk. And we talk about, and he talks to them about losing your hand, losing your digits, losing your eyesight or your hearing, and the impact that has on your livelihood, on your family. He goes, but when I talk to senior leadership, I'm talking to them about the dollars. I'm talking to them about the fines that we could have had if we didn't do X, Y, and Z. I talk to them about the cost that an event has on business, and how lost and a OSHA violation could jeopardize getting a project, could jeopardize being on the bidding list for projects. And he says, and I quantify the things that we're doing, and I show how it translates into a more efficient organization, more cost-effective organization, a more profitable organization. He says, and they support me 110%. Now, I would love to think that all you need to do is talk one way to everybody. But in reality, you need to be in touch with who your audience is, what matters to them the most, and they understand the impact, both personally, emotionally, and financially. We all are motivated differently. Right, wrong, or indifferent. You can have sheer disgust on those who don't put the value on the life and put more value on profitability. But when you are convicted with safety, when you understand the importance of your role in the lives of those who are in your organization, you will learn how to get what you need to get your job done by taking the information and packaging it in a different way based upon the audience that you are speaking to. If you can do that successfully, you will be very successful in your organization to get your safety initiatives funded. That is critical. 70E is a tool for you. 70E helps you understand the ingredients for your safety plan. It's the ingredients for your souffle. Whether you are going to cook a full course meal and you need a dessert, you need a breakfast, you need a salad, you need a main course, you need something to cleanse the palate, and all of those take different ingredients, or you are simply scrambling some eggs and you need a limited amount of ingredients. 70E includes all of the ingredients you need to create your safety plan. 70B includes all of the ingredients. You don't need all of 70B. You might not have a motor control center, so you don't need motor control center maintenance. But you may have circuit breakers, you may have fuses, you may have motor starters and individual starters, you may have transformers. And you need to understand how to maintain those to keep your system working efficiently and safely. You have to have the passion for safety. You have to care about your fellow workers, and you have to put your heart and soul into it. And the individuals I'm with this week do that. Every single one of them. That, for me, personally, is like a drug. It's like an intravenous shot of cocaine that keeps me running. It is absolutely phenomenal to be with individuals who care about safety as much and even more than you do, because they bring an entirely different perspective. These individuals are boots on the street. Many of these individuals have done accident investigations, have talked with wives and husbands and family members whose spouse did not make it home that day or that week. This gentleman that was lost down at the Charlotte airport. Those individuals out there that we've lost in our electrical industry paid the ultimate price. Maybe it was their fault, maybe it wasn't their fault. Maybe it was a design issue, maybe it was a practice issue, maybe it was they didn't wear the right PPE. Maybe it was just a bad day and Murphy was running rampant. I don't know what the reasons are, but I know that we can make a difference together. And with the IAEI right here, your membership, your engagement, leveraging all of those educational resources out there on IAEI.org, you can make a difference partnering with an organization that is an electrical safety leader, educating professionals out in the industry. Get engaged with the IAEI. Get engaged with your organization, whether it be the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, if you're an engineer, or any, you don't need to be an engineer for that. You don't need to be an electrical inspector for the IAEI. I'm an engineer. I'm a member of IAEI. Contractors, IAEI. Whether you are a NECA contractor or an IBEW member, NECA, National Electrical Contractors Association, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, or an independent electrical contractor. All of those people work under this envelope of IAEI. And we all work together for electrical safety. NECA. There are so many other organizations, so many other people who are members of other organizations. The IAEI gives us that one umbrella. I encourage you to get involved, get engaged, get out there and take advantage of online education. If you can't get out from your cubicle, if you can't get leave time, if you can't get away from that desk because you're valuable to your organization, please take advantage of the online virtual educational materials and be a sponge, and then share what you learn with others. All right. So hopefully you got something out of this session, and I apologize for my allergies. I apologize for my allergy attack. I don't know. I don't think it's what's out there. I think it's what's in here. I think it's cleaning agents. I don't know what it is. But every time I get to a hotel, I go through the same issue. All right. Thank you all for what you do for the electrical industry. Thank you for what you do for electrical safety. I just ask that you stay safe and healthy. I will see you next week on Tuesday for another IAEI News Live. Take care. We'll see you.